The sprawling mansion in Las Lomas, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Mexico City, shimmered under golden lights as luxury cars lined the driveway. Inside, politicians, business tycoons, and celebrities floated through marble hallways, clutching champagne flutes and exchanging hollow compliments. It was her party, Natalia Zamora's charity gala, the kind of event plastered all over society pages. All for a good cause, of course. Tonight, they were supposedly raising money for underprivileged youth. Ironic, considering the only underprivileged in the room were the servers weaving through the crowd in crisp black uniforms. 15-year-old Santiago Morales adjusted his tray of hors d'oeuvres, ignoring the sting of humiliation. His mother, Rosa, had worked for the Zamora family for 12 years, cleaning floors, scrubbing toilets, cooking their meals. Tonight, she was in the kitchen while he served strangers. Rosa had begged him to stay home, but Santiago refused. He wanted to see how the other side lived, the side that never noticed boys like him unless they needed their shoes polished. Natalia Zamora, dripping in designer jewels, laughed with her circle of friends near the grand piano. Her voice sliced through the soft classical music. "Can you believe Rosa's son is here, carrying trays like a little waiter?" Natalia grinned wickedly. "Que lindo. Maybe he'll learn some manners being around real people for once." The other women, sleek, thin, faces polished by expensive surgeons, laughed behind manicured hands. Santiago heard every word. He kept his head down, jaw clenched. It wasn't the first time he'd been looked at like dirt, wouldn't be the last, but tonight, fate had other plans. A glass chessboard sat untouched near the fireplace, pieces arranged mid-game, abandoned by bored guests. It caught Santiago's eye immediately. Since he was 7, chess had been his obsession. When other kids played football in the alley, Santiago sat in the corner of their tiny apartment, studying tattered chess books borrowed from the local library. His mother couldn't afford lessons, so Santiago taught himself. He memorized classic matches, watched old tournaments on a battered second-hand tablet, practiced until his fingers ached. He never imagined standing in a mansion with a board made of crystal, each piece probably worth more than everything his family owned. But his chance came faster than expected. Natalia spotted him staring. "Ay, look at this!" she called, waving for everyone's attention. "Santi here wants to play chess. How precious!" She turned to the guests, her voice dripping with mockery. "Let's give the poor boy a little show." The crowd chuckled, curiosity piqued. Rosa, peeking from the kitchen doorway, froze. Her eyes met her son's, silently begging him to walk away. But Santiago stayed rooted, staring at Natalia, not with fear, but with quiet defiance. "You know how the pieces move, Niño?" Natalia teased, sauntering toward the board. Her diamond bracelet sparkled under the chandeliers. "Or is chess too complicated for someone from the barrio?" Laughter rippled through the crowd like poison. Santiago's hand tightened around his tray. His heart pounded, not from nerves, but from years of swallowed insults, invisible ceilings, and being told he'd never measure up. He placed the tray down. "I know how the pieces move," Santiago said evenly, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Would you like to see?" A murmur swept through the room. Natalia smirked. "By all means. Let's have fun." As they settled at the glass board, whispers floated. "This will be brutal. Poor kid doesn't know what he's walking into." But Rosa saw the glint in her son's eyes, the same look he had when he solved puzzles in record time, when he'd beaten online chess apps designed for adults, when he whispered dreams of escaping poverty not with fists, but with strategy. Natalia took the white pieces, smug, tossing her hair back like a queen. Santiago quietly arranged black, every movement precise, fingers steady. The first move was hers. "You can tell your friends you played chess in the biggest mansion in Mexico City," Natalia quipped, a cruel smile curling her lips. Santiago's eyes stayed locked on the board. Tonight isn't for stories, he thought. Tonight is for checkmate. Natalia opened with e4, the classic pawn move, confident, rehearsed. She probably learned it in some upscale social club, Santiago thought. Memorized a few strategies, enough to impress other rich snobs at cocktail parties. Santiago barely paused before replying, C5, the Sicilian defense. A low hum stirred among the guests. Some recognized the move, others just sensed the shift in energy. Rosa's breath caught in her throat. Natalia raised an eyebrow. Fancy, she sneered, masking the flicker of uncertainty with arrogance. Maybe you do know a little something. She followed with NF3, moving her knight with exaggerated elegance. Her diamond ring sparkled as she lifted the piece. Santiago responded instantly with D6. His face remained unreadable, eyes fixed on the board like a soldier mapping enemy territory. The crowd leaned in, wine glasses forgotten. Does he actually know what he's doing? Whispered one of the guests, a portly man in a tailored suit. He's bluffing, Natalia replied, tossing her hair again. You think a barrio kid studies chess? Please. But her smile faltered when Santiago's next few moves came sharp, deliberate, calculated. He wasn't fumbling, wasn't stalling. Every move seemed to follow a blueprint only he could see. Natalia played bishop to c4, a textbook aggressive setup. Santiago's fingers hovered for a second, then executed knight to f6, his eyes briefly flickering up to meet hers. It wasn't just a game now, it was a statement. Natalia's laughter faltered. Guests exchanged glances. Rosa clutched her apron, heart racing. For years, she'd scrubbed floors in this house, invisible, unheard. Tonight. Her son was at the center of the room, flipping their world on its head, one chess piece at a time. Natalia pushed on, determined, but cracks were forming. Hesitations, flickers of doubt. Her moves lost confidence as Santiago's side of the board blossomed with precise development. Then came the turning point. Santiago sacrificed a pawn. Gasps rippled. Did he just... Why would he... Only a few in the room understood. Among them was Señor Herrera, a retired banker with decades of chess experience. That's dangerous, Herrera murmured. His eyes narrowed, scanning the board. Dangerous, but brilliant. Natalia, oblivious, grinned triumphantly. Poor kid cracked under pressure already. Santiago didn't react. His next moves unfolded like clockwork, forcing Natalia's pieces into awkward defensive positions. The guests' amusement shifted to silence. Even the pianist had stopped playing. Natalia's palms grew clammy. It dawned on her, this wasn't a trick. The boy wasn't guessing. He was leading, controlling, dominating. Another sacrifice, another trap. Check. The word echoed louder than it should have. Natalia's facade crumbled, fingers trembling as she scrambled to block. Santiago's voice, quiet but cutting, carried across the marble floor. Still having fun, señora? The crowd chuckled nervously. Natalia's cheeks flushed crimson. You're clever, she admitted, forcing a smile, but the edge in her voice betrayed her pride cracking. But this is still my house. Santiago leaned back, expression unreadable. Doesn't matter where we play, he replied simply, eyes burning with quiet fire. The board's the same everywhere. Rosa, watching from the sidelines, felt her chest swell. This wasn't just a game. It was years of sacrifice, late nights, whispered dreams, all crystallizing into this moment. And for the first time, the rich were finally listening.
Natalia fumbled her next move, hand hovering over the board, her confidence draining with every second. Around them, the elegant guests clutched their champagne glasses tighter, eyes darting between the mismatched pair. The maid's son, the socialite queen. And suddenly, the queen was losing. Santiago didn't smirk, didn't gloat. He moved with precision, placing his bishop exactly where it needed to be. His mind operated 3-4 moves ahead, a skill born not from tutors or expensive academies, but quiet hours spent in the corner of their tiny apartment, under flickering lights, solving chess problems while his mother worked double shifts. Natalia tried to rally, sending her knight across the board aggressively, but Santiago had already anticipated the trap. His counter came swift, slicing through her strategy like a blade through silk. Check again. This time the room was dead silent. Señor Herrera rubbed his chin, disbelief etched on his weathered face. Where did this kid learn to play like that? He whispered to no one in particular. Internet, someone muttered. Library, guessed another. They were all wrong. Santiago's education came from scraps, a borrowed chess book salvaged from a church donation bin, broken internet connections at a rundown cafe, blurry YouTube videos watched late at night when sleep refused to come. His lessons were paid in hunger pangs, missed outings with friends, whispered promises to himself that one day he'd be more than they expected. Natalia's expression darkened, pride unraveling. She could feel their stares, their judgment creeping in like poison ivy. Her flawless reputation, her polished image, the effortless superiority she clung to. It was slipping. She lashed out with words instead of moves. "Tell me, Niño," she spat softly, adjusting her diamond earrings. "Do you even own a chess set at home? Or do you practice with bottle caps on cardboard?" Laughter returned to the room, bitter, strained, but it was weaker now. Santiago met her gaze, unflinching. "We don't have a board," he admitted, "but I have the positions memorized, hundreds of games, thousands of moves." His voice was calm, sharper than any insult. Rosa, near the kitchen, fought back tears, not of shame, but pride so fierce it burned in her chest. Natalia's throat tightened, another pawn gone, another forced defense. Check. "Impossible," she muttered, eyes scanning the battlefield she was rapidly losing. Santiago waited. He could see the unraveling, panic disguised as arrogance, uncertainty masked by glitter and wealth. The guests began shifting. Some whispered, others watched with growing fascination. A few, the ones who understood strategy, already saw it. Natalia Zamora was trapped. The Queen of Mexico City's elite was being methodically dismantled by a boy she didn't even consider worthy of her floors. Santiago moved his rook, setting the final snare. Natalia's lips parted, a shaky breath escaping. She didn't see the next 5 moves. But Santiago did. And so did Rosa. Tonight wasn't about winning a game. It was about flipping the entire power dynamic in this golden marble mansion. And Natalia? She just walked straight into her own downfall. Natalia's hand hovered over the board, her perfectly manicured nails trembling for the first time in public. She scanned the pieces, desperate to find a way out, but Santiago had constructed a fortress, a maze with only one exit, and that door slammed shut 5 moves ago. The guests around them, once amused, now quiet, sipped their drinks with wide eyes. The low hum of conversation had vanished, replaced by an uneasy tension that thickened the air. Señor Herrera leaned closer, whispering to the woman beside him. "This boy's playing textbook Sicilian dragon variation, and clean. Too clean for a beginner." The woman frowned. "But he's Rosa's son. He's from the barrio?" "Yeah," Herrera interrupted, his voice low but heavy with realization. "Doesn't mean his brain's any less dangerous?" Natalia forced a smile, the edges cracking. "You're clever, Niño," she whispered under her breath. "But this isn't some street tournament." Santiago didn't react. His eyes stayed on the board, calculating, calm, dangerous. Every piece felt like an extension of his will, a weapon sharpened by late-night studying, fueled by hunger, pride, and years of watching men like Natalia's father look down on his people. She moved, a desperate attempt to regain control. Mistake. Santiago's knight leapt across the board, positioning perfectly. The trap snapped shut like a jaw. "Check," he announced, voice steady. A collective murmur rippled through the room. Natalia's cheeks burned. Her friends, the ones who cheered when she mocked Rosa's son earlier, watched her now with different eyes. Pity, disappointment, or worse, amusement at her unraveling. "No one beats me in my own house," she hissed under her breath, but her words lacked venom now. Santiago adjusted his seat, posture straight, hands steady. "This isn't your house anymore," he replied quietly, almost too soft to hear. "It's just a board now." Rosa's hand clutched the pendant around her neck, knuckles white. Her son's words weren't just for chess. They were for every humiliation they'd swallowed, every backhanded comment, every reminder they didn't belong. Tonight the lines were blurring. Natalia's next moves were sloppy, fueled by anger, not logic. Santiago countered with ruthless efficiency, dismantling her defenses like peeling the layers off an onion. Another check, another mistake. Her queen exposed. A gasp escaped one of the guests. "She's losing," someone whispered, disbelief clinging to their voice. Natalia heard it too. Panic clawed at her chest. Her reputation, her flawless image, the power she wielded in rooms like these, it all balanced on a glass board. And Santiago was smashing it, one calculated move at a time. "You're lucky," she spat, desperate to regain footing. "That's all this is." Santiago tilted his head slightly, eyes sharp as blades. Luck doesn't last 10 moves ahead. He sacrificed his bishop. The room stiffened. Another trap. Natalia's hands shook now, publicly, visibly, undeniably. Santiago pressed the advantage. The queen, gone. The king, exposed. And all eyes turned to Natalia Zamora, the woman who built her empire on wealth, status, superiority, and now sat cornered by a boy she considered beneath her. Checkmate hovered like a storm cloud, inevitable. Rosa's heart pounded in her chest. She had scrubbed these floors, ironed these tablecloths, served drinks to these people for years, and tonight, her son was the one tearing their illusions apart, piece by piece. And Santiago? He wasn't done yet.
The final moves unfolded like a slow, calculated storm. Santiago shifted his rook into position, eyes locked on the board. His fingers moved with precision, confidence radiating from his quiet posture. Each piece placed with intention, each square, part of a trap so elegant, it left no escape. Natalia tried to hide the panic rising in her throat, but the cracks in her polished exterior were impossible to miss. Her diamond earrings swayed as she leaned forward, scanning the board for salvation. There was none. The whispers around them sharpened, slicing through the suffocating silence. "He's brilliant. Where did he learn this? Didn't she mock him earlier? Look at her now." Natalia's face flushed a deep, angry red, but there was nowhere to hide. The guests, once her worshippers, were transfixed by the boy who had come from nothing, who sat there, methodically dismantling everything she thought made her untouchable. Rosa stood frozen near the edge of the room, hands trembling slightly. It wasn't fear anymore, it was pride, surging so fiercely it left her breathless. Her son wasn't invisible tonight. He wasn't just the maid's boy in some rich woman's mansion. He was the storm tearing through their arrogance. Natalia reached for a piece, hesitated, her mind spiraling. "You should resign." Santiago's voice cut through her thoughts, calm, composed, merciless. "It'll save you the last 2 moves." Her lips parted, disbelief flashing across her face. "No one tells me what to do in my house," she hissed, clinging to the last threads of authority. Santiago didn't flinch. "This isn't about your house, Senora. It's about the board." Her fingers faltered. Señor Herrera cleared his throat, stepping closer, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Listen to the boy. You've already lost." The words struck harder than a slap. Natalia's pride reared up, but the truth bled through. The queen was gone, her defenses shattered, the king cornered. The humiliation wasn't coming, it was already here. Santiago's next move sealed it. Checkmate. The room fell deathly silent. The guests, once eager to watch a poor boy get humiliated, now stared wide-eyed at the reverse Natalia Zamora, heir to a construction empire, Mexico City's social queen, publicly, undeniably defeated by a teenager from the barrio. Her lips trembled. "You must have memorized that sequence," she muttered, voice cracking under the weight of embarrassment. "You couldn't have played that on your own." Santiago finally leaned back, eyes steady, expression unreadable. "You're right," he admitted. "I memorized it. During the nights when we couldn't afford electricity, when my mom worked double shifts, and I lit candles to study, while you slept in silk sheets." The words hit harder than any chess move. Rosa's eyes shone with tears that refused to fall, her heart heavier than it had ever been, but full of fierce, stubborn pride. The guests shifted, their stares no longer full of admiration for Natalia. Shame, disappointment, curiosity about the boy who just shattered their illusion of superiority. Natalia's breath came in shallow bursts. Her empire of control crumbled under crystal chandeliers, all thanks to the kid she thought was nothing. But Santiago wasn't done yet. Santiago rose slowly from his seat, the quiet scrape of the chair against the marble floor echoing through the suffocating silence. His hands rested calmly at his sides, but the entire room could feel the weight of what just happened. Natalia Zamora, the untouchable, the queen of high society, was frozen in place, her face pale, her lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. Her king lay tipped over on the glittering crystal board, her defeat impossible to deny. "You set me up," she blurted suddenly, voice cracking as desperation clawed its way up her throat. "You trained for this, didn't you? Someone prepared you to humiliate me." Santiago tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes never wavering. "I trained myself, Senora," he replied evenly, every syllable cutting sharper than glass. "You gave me the stage. I just played the game." The crowd whispered again, some with awe, some with disbelief, others with amusement at seeing the mighty fall. Natalia's carefully constructed mask of superiority crumbled with every passing second. Across the room, Rosa stepped forward, no longer hidden in the shadows. Her voice, quiet but firm, carried through the tense air. "My son studied every night," she said, chin held high, ignoring the stares that used to reduce her to a uniform. "We didn't have a computer, no tutors, just old books from the library, broken chess pieces from the second-hand store, and his determination." Natalia scoffed, struggling to regain control. "You expect me to believe that some barrio kid teaches himself grandmaster strategies?" Santiago's jaw clenched, but his voice stayed composed, cold. "Believe what you want, the board doesn't lie." Señorera, still observing the aftermath, finally spoke, his tone carrying decades of respect for the game. "He didn't just memorize moves, Natalia. The boy played you like a grandmaster, and you underestimated him from the second you opened your mouth." The words cut deeper than Santiago's victory ever could. Natalia's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances, suddenly unsure where to stand, whether beside their fallen queen or on the side of undeniable genius. The guests no longer looked at Santiago like a servant's son. They saw him for what he was, a prodigy, a symbol of everything they'd tried to ignore, that brilliance isn't reserved for the rich, and that real power doesn't glitter, it humbles. Santiago adjusted his sleeves, ready to leave, but paused, his eyes meeting Natalia's one final time. "Your house, your party, your rules," he said quietly, "but on the board, there's only truth." The silence was brutal, heavy with judgment, embarrassment, and the quiet, unsettling realization that the world they built on wealth wasn't as unshakable as they thought. And Rosa, watching her son stand taller than anyone in that golden room, knew tonight wasn't about chess. It was about respect, and Santiago Morales had just earned it square by square. Natalia's perfectly polished facade shattered like glass, but pride refused to let her sink quietly. "This was a setup," she spat, voice high, trembling, desperate to salvage the pieces of her dignity. "You embarrassed me on purpose. You came here to humiliate me in front of my guests." Santiago stayed still, the storm in his eyes calm but brewing. His silence was louder than any insult. Señor Herrera exhaled heavily, stepping toward the board. "No one forced you to invite him to play, Natalia," he pointed out, each word slow, cutting. "You did that all on your own. You underestimated him all because of where he's from." Natalia's lips quivered, eyes darting across the room, searching for support among the wealthy, smug faces that once surrounded her. But they'd changed expressions, hardening, some turning away, others watching Santiago with curiosity, even admiration. The whispers stabbed deeper than any words. "Did you see how he played? She underestimated him. Classic, maybe she's not as brilliant as she thinks." For the first time in her life, Natalia Zamora wasn't the one holding the room together. She was the one falling apart. Across the marble floor, Rosa's shoulders straightened. For years, she'd scrubbed these floors, invisible, careful, small, but tonight, her son stood at the center and the mansion's walls didn't seem so powerful anymore. Natalia tried one last time to claw her way back. "You don't belong here," she hissed at Santiago, her voice sharp, poisonous, echoing with the entitlement she'd been raised on. "You're just the helps kid. This world isn't yours." Santiago's eyes darkened, but his voice remained steady, cutting like ice. I don't need to belong to your world, he replied simply. I'll build my own. The guests froze at the quiet defiance. It wasn't arrogance, it was something far more dangerous, certainty. Say. Your Herrera nodded slowly, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You should listen to him, Natalia, he muttered under his breath. He's already 3 moves ahead. And with that, the floodgates opened. Phones buzzed. Discreet recordings circulating. The story morphing from private humiliation to public spectacle. Within minutes, Santiago's calm dismantling of Mexico City's most privileged woman was already sliding across social media feeds. Natalia's pulse raced. Her world the polished, untouchable empire her family built on status and money was slipping from her perfectly manicured hands, and Santiago Morales, son of the Maid, the barrio kid they all laughed at, was the one standing over the wreckage. Checkmate wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Asterisk. By the time Santiago and Rosa walked out of the mansion, the air outside was cooler, fresher, the suffocating tension left behind with the marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and broken pride scattered across the chessboard. Inside, Natalia stood frozen, her guests peeling away one by one, their smiles gone, replaced by disapproval, disappointment, and whispered conversations that she couldn't control. Her empire, the one she ruled with arrogance, was crumbling. Not by scandal, not by a business rival, but by a 50 with no money, no surname worth mentioning, just relentless, undeniable talent. Social media erupted before they even reached the gate. Barrio Kid checkmates Mexico's richest socialite. Watch her face collapse. Maid's son destroys the Queen of Las Lomas with chess genius. The videos spread like wildfire, clipped, shared, dissected by influencers, chess players, even politicians hungry for a story about the fall of privilege. Natalia's name trended, but not in the way it once did. Sponsors pulled back. Invitations dried up. Charities distanced themselves. Her father's construction empire took a PR hit overnight. Meanwhile, Santiago's life spun in a direction no one expected. Universities called, chess clubs offered mentorships, international news outlets wanted interviews. He wasn't just the maid's boy anymore, he was the symbol of every kid society counted out, every barrio dreamer forced to fight twice as hard to be seen. Rosa, watching her son sit down with officials from the National Chess Federation, could barely believe it. The little boy who memorized grandmaster plays by candlelight, who practiced strategy in their cramped apartment, was now being offered opportunities they couldn't have dreamed of. But Santiago stayed grounded, eyes always 3 moves ahead. In one interview, a reporter asked the question lingering on everyone's minds: do you hold a grudge against Natalia Zamora for what she tried to do that night? Santiago smiled faintly, the same calm, dangerous smile he wore that night across the chessboard. No, he answered, voice steady. You don't waste energy on people stuck in the past. You focus on the future, the moves that actually change your life. Natalia, watching that interview alone, in her empty, echoing mansion, finally understood the depth of her defeat. It wasn't the chess match, it was the exposure, the reckoning, the reminder that real greatness isn't measured by money or marble floors. It's measured by resilience, by sacrifice. By a boy from the barrio who turned humiliation into history. And, as Santiago Morales prepared for his scholarship abroad, shaking hands with people who never cared about his last name, one truth solidified: the rich underestimated him once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. And Natalia Zamora, she'd regret that party for the rest of her privileged, empty life. The end.